Hello, welcome to Trewsnight. I've got writing on my hand from Newsnight. It's, make Evan nervous.
You're much more tactile than the Jeremy geezer. He hated it when I touched his legs.
Touch Evan's leg again. Touch it again.
That's how the BBC missed the mark.
Keep touching his leg.
You want to say that corporates are getting a rough ride?
Don't let him do any sarcastic questions.
I don't want to follow you down blind alleys.
This is a comments edition. I enjoy comments editions because it's us in direct dialogue with one another. The first comment comes from Guy Incognito. Russ, saw you on Newsnight. Who do you prefer, Evan Davis or Paxman? Right, I was on that Newsnight, and what's interesting is there's the show itself, and then there's the subsequent reporting. If you look at any subsequent reporting around it, they talk about the main things I was there to promote is locally organised activism and an ideology of change around inequality and ecology.
I took great inspiration from the Focus E15 mums who were turfed out of their homes by a Newham council that were indifferent to their plight and organised themselves creatively and opposed that, and through that action they won 40 council homes for homeless people in the borough through creative direct action. I would draw your attention to the New Era estate in Hoxton, where, like many Londoners and many people in our country, they're facing terrifying situation around housing. We want to organise ourselves, as is happening on the New Era estate.
But when it's reported, no one talks about that. They talk about, I was pressed to say something about 9/11, and I was like, well, I don't trust the government.
But you're not suggesting the Bush family were involved in the destruction of 9/11?
I don't want to talk about daft conspiracy theories here on Newsnight, mate.
So my response to that question is, well, I'm not an expert on demolitions, I'm not an expert on conspiracies. My personal opinion is I don't trust the American government, I don't trust the UK government. But what they do is they highlight, they're like, right, position him as a big wacky conspiracist. Why would subsequent coverage not centre on, oh right, this is an opportunity to support local activist groups or the Occupy movement? The thing I was most interested in talking about was what's happening in Parliament Square, or Tarpaulin Square as it's now been dubbed, where people, with a lot of single issue groups or people that are more specifically disenchanted with the way that Westminster democracy is functioning, have come together to protest against it. It went down there, very fascinating and inspiring, and you should go down there yourself and check it out. It's a really interesting and exciting time. And groups like the Focus E15 mums and the New Era estate families that are confronting the agenda of rich people, rich developers, and again, the constant charge of hypocrisy. When you're talking about a country like ours, where the 5 richest families in the country have collectively as much wealth as the 12 million poorest people in the country, there's evidently need for change. All those people, whether they're part of the 12 million poorest or the 5 richest family, they all pay the same licence fee, and they all have the same right to have their views represented. But mainstream media exists to maintain a straight milieu. So, it's very difficult to be on a show like Newsnight because you know that you're being forced into a position to make the fundamental argument of, come on, inequality is a problem, the ecology is a problem, and our politics isn't addressing it. They'll try to attack me on a personal level, so it's fascinating. In terms of which one do I prefer, Evan Davis or Paxman, I like Jeremy Paxman because I've just spent my whole life seeing him rip up politicians, so I just think, there's that bloke. You always see him being rude to politicians, so I like him on a personal level. Evan Davis, he was sweet as well, but in terms of his questioning style, he was much more sort of insidious, I think. Plus I saw him interview Stephen Fry once, a person who's provided a voice for mentally ill people, and 1 in 4 of us will suffer from mental health problems at some point in their life. God knows I have. And he was sort of mean to Stephen Fry and a bit rude. So that's my Newsnight True Views on the Newsnight. Dean Neo, Mr. Brand, I'm not sure if you've covered this subject, but I'd really be interested in your views of EU bankers' bonus ban earlier this year and our government's decision to find countless loopholes to avoid implementing this ban on our bankers. I find it staggering the attempts and sheer determination our government have made to ensure that bankers get their mega salaries in spite of the crisis and the debt crisis and taxpayers' input. Surely the EU have helped enforce a law which protects us all. Why would we not? Well, that's when you think of the amount of coverage given to issues around immigration, something like this, where EU bankers' bonus ban has been put in place and our government opposes it, it's sort of galling. Similarly, yesterday I learned while doing an event for The Guardian Live with the lovely Owen Jones that fossil fuel energy companies that are damaging the planet receive tax subsidies, and renewable energies like wind and water and solar energies they don't receive it. Like, I have to be careful and take a deep breath once in a while, because otherwise it seems like there's a fathomless tundra of wickedness governing us. Paul Kay. I see no problem in curbing down on uncontrolled immigration. Freedom of movement of people in the EU is a great concept if the country is prepared to welcome them. That involves finding them a decent living, having the bureaucratic and infrastructural capacity to manage them and integrate them, on top of paying a lot of welfare in the short term. The more taxes than welfare argument works over a generation worth of time, but on the short term it just puts the UK into debt. That's my interpretation of the matters, and I'd like to see someone challenge them. It's almost like, why are you talking about that? Why are you allowing that to be the agenda? It doesn't matter. The figures are insignificant. The impact is insufficient. The previous comment there from Dean Neo, who's got a sillier name than you, Paul Kay, is much more significant, because that is a systemic problem. That's a peeling away one layer of the fortification of financial tyranny. If you just go, right, immigrants, not only are they not allowed in, we're going to shoot them at Calais, it won't make any difference to the 12 million poorest families. We have to constantly recalibrate and constantly refocus. If the agenda, the intention, is not some moral argument or some ethical argument, but to improve the quality of life spiritually, and part of that will mean an economic and financial reorganisation, then focus on things that can make an impact on that, not things that have an emotive pang. Hodder Hashem, I'd love to see a discussion between you and Katie Hopkins. I bet I'd fall in love with her. I mean, no, don't fall in love. But when they're mean, I sort of think, oh God, you're so horrible. Could you ever love me? Yeah, I'd like to see a discussion between me and Katie Hopkins. I'd have a discussion with her. She can come on the Trews if she wants. The Ange 2099. Politicians from all parties are pigs that eat from the same trough. Yes, but then there's Tom Watkins, isn't there, and Caroline Lucas, and there's probably some other nice ones who I don't know about yet. So it's the problem is the trough and the pig mentality. And that's the difficulty. We need to change the trough, and then them pigs would become like all nice. Trews 421. If Nigel Farage can be invited to a live television debate on the BBC, surely Russell can get involved, not in a serious electoral debate. Oi, yes I can. But I'd like to see how some actual politicians react to your points. Oh, it'd be funny, wouldn't it? Yeah, have me on there with Nigel Farage. But you should have the Greens in those debates. If the UKIP are in them debates, the Greens should definitely be in them debates. Crazy Nairobian. Come on, Russell. What's with the swastika on the necklace? Well, like that necklace, that's from Messiah Complex, my stand-up show that I've done recently. And what I've done was put all different signifiers to demonstrate that whether it's a crucifix, Star of David, this emblem that indicates masculinity, the McDonald's M, or the swastika, the very language of symbols itself is something that we can designate and alter. This swastika, as you already know, was already a Hindu good luck symbol. It exists in all sorts of pagan cultures. And someone said to me recently, why should the Nazis get to keep the symbols that they stole? Why should they get to keep the symbols that they stole? Now, I'm not going to go Richard Herring style and grow a little Hitler moustache, and I think they can keep the silly moustaches, but even Chaplin's got a claim for that, hasn't he? A good, honest, decent, British, funny communist. But the reason it's there, same reason McDonald's M's there, to create a sort of a dissonance and disruption between all those symbols. I would never I would never willingly offend anybody with a necklace. Seems like an odd way to offend someone. I certainly have no affiliation with any far-right groups, particularly if I was going to have an affiliation with far-right groups. I would actually go with the Nazis. How can the Nazis still be getting airtime? Is there anything to be said for the Nazis? No, not the Nazis! So the swastika is just, in a way, it's just like nicking the sign back. Same with the McDonald's M. That's apparently some pagan symbol. Those arches, they nick our stuff, nick it back off them. I'm everywhere, this person's called. I'm everywhere. Can someone explain to me exactly what Russell means in saying corporate powers? Does he mean UK companies and or multinational companies? Both, I suppose. But the main argument, as I see it, is where power is concentrated, where the people that work in an institution or an organisation have no agency or ability to affect their own lives or don't have a voice, increasing 0-hour contracts in the private sector, public sector workers like the fire brigade, nurses, people whose jobs are like, oh come on, it's the life and death gear now. You know, what I feel is that they lack agency. There's no voice, there's no structure for people to have power in their places of work. So when I talk about multinational companies, they transcend often national law, and they certainly transcend personal morality in so many instances. Graham Jones. Why are large, powerful corporations a bad thing? I just don't see it. Take Apple, for example. My life has been improved by Apple products. Believe me, I dropped my iPhone down the toilet earlier. You don't know something's good till it's gone. I know what you mean, because I like my Apple iPhone, and I know what you mean, like the adverts are all cool and the products seem really nice. But I'll tell you why it's bad. Loads of reasons. One is like the way that those products are manufactured by independently licensed factories, like in places like China, where the workers don't have proper rights. Another thing is that more broadly, they've got, I think they're like got a pile of like 5 billion in cash that they're really being crafty about paying tax on, right? That's, you check out the figures, you know, but just put Apple tax into Google. It's not going to be hard for you. You're all obviously on the internet. Another thing is they conspire with organisations like Facebook and Google in providing data to government agencies. But more like some of you will think this is vague, but I think it contributes to us all being kind of lost in a solipsistic, narcissistic little mirror. Hypocrisy is an inevitability, given that we live in the aquarium of capitalism and consumerism. If we jump out of the aquarium, we will likely starve. But we can try to change this thing. We can try to alter it. We can acknowledge our vulnerabilities. We can acknowledge our right to not be perfect and yet still desire change. Look into corporations yourself, mate. You'll see that companies like GM, Monsanto, Pfizer, Halliburton, generally speaking, it's their motive to make profit, their inherent, their sort of inherent stated prerequisite to make profit means that they neglect lots of our human values, social values. And a company like Exxon, for example, is sort of violently advancing the destruction of our planet. So it's a really sort of, it's not hard to learn about it, mate. Have a look into it, Graham. But I agree, the products are attractive. Gareth Wareth. Russ Dog. There are too few jobs in the UK and too many people in the UK compared to the jobs we have. I have a solution. Why don't we start making our own iPads, phones, toys, foods, clothes, etc. that are currently being imported from random countries where everything has been made by some of the 35 million slaves in the world. If we oppose big corporations, we can stop them using slaves and bring those slave jobs back to the UK. Gareth Wareth, I love your idea. I think it's brilliant. If a political party were ever to oppose corporate power, like if saying like, we're not going to let you open more branches, we're going to insist you pay taxes, we're closing these tax loopholes. The fear is you're always told, well, those companies won't come to our country and do business. I say, yeah, fuck off then. We'll run our own coffee shops, we'll build our own computers, and maybe things will be a little bit rickety. Maybe it won't be so slick as this one, but it'll have been built here, together, by us. And, it'll be a bit fairer. So Gareth Wareth, for someone with a name that, let's face it, is a bit silly, you've come up with a bloody good idea, and I endorse it. That is some true news. That is some true news. True news. Subscribe to True News. True News. News you can trust. True News. Watch the Trews. True News. News you can trust.
News is a tool that is abused to fool you and to leave you scared and confused. Trews is like the news. If the news was true, I want some Trews. Let's have some Trews.